Jesse, Tina.
How's it going, Brent, me, and then Tina?
Yeah, I mean, if we're just going the way it's ordered in the program, Brent, Jesse, then Ivory, and then Tina. If Ivory's here.
Hey, he kind of on his own time, you know.
I know Yvette was up in her room. She didn't realize she was the moderator for the panel just now. Yeah. Yeah. Kathleen tracked her down and got it going. Hey, sweetie. Is this yours? Soldier. Watch out.
She ended up really fucking with me hard, but to get over that, it was 3 months on the job, and this last panel, this thing, no, it's ridiculous. And that's a different atmosphere. If you can do that, these are the people. These are the people that can everybody hoping they're gonna get out of it. Now, Chris works with a lot of kids. Some of them have, most of them have that.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
You have slides as well? She comes from the hip.
Yeah, you and Ivory. There's Ivory. My man.
One of the restaurants is literally flooded upstairs. Yeah, it's like a pool opened up inside the restaurant. It's just flooded. It's crazy. Upstairs. Man, what's happening, bro? Good to see you. I can't believe you beat it. Nice to meet you.
We need to get started, right? Okay. Good morning, everybody. I said good morning, everybody. I'd like to give honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who is indeed the head of my life. I also want to give honor to my beautiful wife, Karen, who's in the audience today, who supports me like no one else can. My name is Curtis Taylor, and I am a person in long-term recovery. And for me, that means I have not used alcohol or any other substance since December 23rd, 2002. I moved into Oxford House Crosslink in North Carolina in 1996, and I immediately got under the wings of Kathleen Gibson and Mr. John Fox, but especially Kathleen Gibson. And, you know, we're encouraged to talk about our successes, and I could take a lot of time this morning telling you about all the wonderful and great things that God has done in my life, but I want to be careful and make sure I talk about my failures as well. Because after putting together almost 5 years clean, Mr. Narcotics Anonymous, Mr. Oxford House, Mr. this and Mr. that, I had a return to use. And that last and final return to use landed me in prison for the first time. And when I came home from prison in 2004, as a result of my prison experience, Kathleen and I put together what we called the North Carolina Oxford House Reentry Coordinator position in our state. And I got the opportunity to go right back inside those same prisons and help both men and women transition directly from incarceration straight on up into one of these big old pretty Oxford houses and get their life underway. So had I not had that return to use, that probably most likely would not have been my experience. I wouldn't have been your reentry coordinator, but that's what took place. I could not be more honored and more grateful to serve as the moderator for this particular panel, where we get to talk about the incredible superheroes up here on this stage that day in and day out are making sure that that man and that woman on that prison bunk today, praying and not knowing where they're going to go when they go home, have someplace safe to call their home. So we're going to dive right into this thing. Our first panelist this morning, his name is Mr. Brent Welsh. Brent entered his first Oxford House in July 2018 and quickly became a vital member of the community. As a core member, Brent was instrumental in opening 2 houses, showcasing his leadership and his dedication. His passion and his commitment were recognized in 2019 when he was hired by Oxford House. Initially serving as the chapter reentry chair, Brent transitioned to the role of reentry coordinator for the state of Kentucky. After 4 years of impactful service, he now holds the position of senior reentry coordinator for Kentucky, continuing to make significant contributions to both recovery and to reintegration efforts. Help me welcome Brent Welsh.
Good morning. My name is Brent Welsh, and I am a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is I have not had a drink or a drug since November 13, 2018. All right, so I'm going to be talking to y'all about 2 components that I believe that will help build, progress, reentry in y'all's areas. The first one is going to be working with probation and parole. Now, since not even just reentries, you know, people coming directly from incarceration to our houses, but a lot of just our period people, right? We all work with probation and parole on some level. A lot of us tend to be on paper, right, when we get to a certain place. Regardless of if it's, a parole transfer, like maybe not just coming straight out of jail, but you're just moving to a different area, moving from one Oxford house to maybe to a different state, whatever that may look like. But reentry specifically when they're coming out of incarceration straight to our Oxford houses, probation and parole, unless they're a serve out, they're going to have to get approved by probation and parole to live in our houses, right? So we need to, usually staff, outreach, reentry coordinators, if y'all have them in your state, we build network that relationship. But what you all could do as the membership, on the membership level, is to strengthen that relationship, build that relationship and keep it consistent, because we're not going nowhere. Probation and parole is not going nowhere, and we literally can be a partnership. Not only, I don't know if I'm going to be stepping on anybody's panel or anybody's slide, but there is a statistic out there that there are around 70% of every incarcerated person in America is made up of people with substance use disorder, right? That is a hell of a lot of people that are us, right? So in order to help our brothers and sisters that are ready, that have done their time, that are ready to do something different, that want the opportunity but don't know where to go, that's where Oxford House can come in. And probation and parole is going to be the key to helping do that. So what does that look like of y'all building and strengthening that relationship? Really, it's communication. Whenever usually if they're doing house visits, probation and parole will have to investigate the house to see if it's a good fit, right? Or whatever that may look like. They might need to, or maybe they're just transferring their parole. They need to know if the person is going to be there. When they come to the houses, answer the door. When they call the house phones, answer the house phone. You all literally not answering the house phone or answering the door could be the deciding factor of how much longer a person that has done their time and is ready for a new opportunity that won't be able to get out. Just because we didn't simply pick up the phone, we didn't simply open the door. Now, when they come to our houses, we should be, we have to get rid of this old notion of we don't mess with the police. We're different today, right? We're law-abiding citizens, right? We're law-abiding citizens today. We're good, upstanding, community people today, right? So when they come to our houses, invite them in. Be cordial, be polite. Hey, how you doing, sir? Ma'am, would you like to come in? Check out this, like you were talking about, our big fancy house. Oh, you need to know if such and such was accepted here, that has a bed here? Well, come on in. Let me go to the secretary minutes, and I'll let you know. Let's see. Yes, sir, we did. We voted it in last week. We can't wait till he gets here. That's the type of attitude that we need to have with probation and parole. Same thing if they're calling on the phone. If they call and they leave a voicemail, I know that, house phones don't tend to get answered. But I know y'all have voicemails, call them back. If they leave a door tag on the door with a callback number, call it back. They deserve the same amount of respect and time that anyone from treatment, the street, or anywhere else gets. And yeah, it takes a little extra steps. It takes a lot of extra steps getting someone released from incarceration to an Oxford house. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't give them that respect, because they are still our brothers and sisters that have suffered the same thing and suffered the same pain and struggle and addiction that everyone else did. It just led them to a different place than some people, right? So, build that relationship. They're the good guys. We're the good guys. Let's work together, right? And what that literally will do is I will stand on this mountaintop that probation and reentry will expand Oxford House. With the numbers that I was talking about earlier, with that many people, of our people locked up, that will expand Oxford House. Paul Malloy talks about 10,000 houses. Reentry that's what's going to expand Oxford House, in my opinion. All right, let's go to the next one. All right. The next thing I'll talk about is my favorite, reentry subcommittees. Reentry subcommittees are a subcommittee that's made up of chapter-appointed reentry chairs, right? If you don't have a reentry subcommittee in your state yet, that's okay. If you don't have reentry chair positions in your state, please go back and empower them to do that. Like, this is the service position that helps us create the home placements, right? This is how we get our people out of there, straight from there, gets right to our houses. They are literally the boots on the ground, advocating for reentry. I will say this today and forever. I've been doing this for about 5 years. For 4 years, I was the only reentry coordinator in the state, and we didn't have a subcommittee. I had to build it up, right? It started with 1 chapter, 2 chapters, and now it's at 18. And I can't be everywhere at one place, right? I can't be in every chapter meeting. I can't be in everybody's house meeting, empowering them, to try to help our people out. I give all the credit to my subcommittee. Behind closed doors, I call them the mob because they don't mess around. Like, they are the ones, and a lot of them are reentry themselves, right? Who has a better passion and will empower better to houses and chapters than actual reentry that have been through the process? They've been on the other side of the fence, and they know what the process looks like, and they know that Oxford House was what they needed, right? They are the ones that are going into chapter meetings, training the reentry process, whatever that might look like in your area. They are calling HSRs day and night, and I really do mean day and night. They probably get tired of me calling and texting them as well to reach out to these houses, but they do it because they're passionate about it and they know it works. They're also they also help with financial assistance, work boots, bus passes, food bank, clothing vouchers. Like, they all democratically vote in their subcommittee meetings to help reentry or the houses that accept reentry. Sometimes it's not even about like the reentry specific helping them, but it's about helping the house that maybe was financially struggling, that had open beds, knew they couldn't pay, but was still willing to give somebody from incarceration a shot and a bed, regardless, to get them to a safe place, right? To get them out the door and on the next step. All right, let's see. They're also, they do a lot, y'all, and I really hope that you all will empower your areas if you don't have reentry chairs to vote in this position, because if you build a reentry subcommittee, they will come. Like, I've seen the numbers. When I first started, I would maybe place, I don't know, 1 a week. I would get a lot of applications. But it was just so hard to go and talk to the house and get them to accept someone from incarceration. There was a lot of fear involved too, right? And we could talk about that. How much time do I got? Let's talk about that real quick. So we already know about the stigma, around us, right? Addicts, alcoholics, with the community, right? The outside world. I'm not talking about that stigma. I'm talking about the stigma inside of our houses. And I've been doing this for a little bit, and I've seen it in my area and in a lot of other areas, a lot of states. There's some sort of fear inside some houses or some members that they don't want to accept somebody from prison, right? We really need to change that, because at the end of the day, everyone's madness takes them to a different place and a different location. Regardless of where you're at that point in your life, that if you're an addict or an alcoholic, you've been struggling through the grips of addiction that has made you do whatever you had to do to get whatever you want, and which led you to wherever you was led, regardless of where you're at that time, you should deserve an opportunity in a bed in an Oxford house, period. Period. And once again, I'll just keep saying it. Reentry will expand Oxford House as a whole. It'll expand your areas. It'll expand your chapters. It'll expand the passion. I've seen the passion. I've seen the reentry chairs. They get so excited when they get someone placed. They get so excited when they see them, when they actually get to the door. They get to welcome them with some sort of hygiene bag or talk to them about whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, reentry is what really fulfills my life, and it did from the very start. I was a reentry chair, and I just love it. So, real quick, to kind of show the numbers of how good our reentry subcommittee has done, I started doing is it called analytics? Started doing numbers a couple years ago, 2023, and let me explain something. Like, there is definitely a difference between applications received and reentry welcomed home. There's a difference, big difference, right? Because there's so many obstacles and red tape and all kinds of stuff that it takes from someone to get someone from one cell to the house, right? I forgot I was going to go with that. It's not like, you know, I've been to treatment a million times. I'm not sitting here talking down on treatment. What I'm saying is, you know, you're in treatment, you make a call, you get voted in, you're in the house, right? It's not that simple. So when I say that we probably get about 600 applications a year, and only getting about half of them placed, it might not sound like a lot, but it's a lot. In 2023, we had about 256 reentry welcomed home. And this year, right. 200, it might not sound like a lot to y'all, but 256 people from incarceration is a lot. And then this year until today, this is probably a couple weeks old, but we probably got about the same amount, so we're going on up. So we'll probably have about 300 by the time the year's over this year. Which comes out to about, that's actually a typo, it's supposed to be 20 to 25 members a month, and like I said, we average about 300 members a year. But I don't average it, the subcommittee averages it. Yeah. The members average it. The reentry subcommittee, the reentry chairs, they do the work, right? So please get y'all some reentry chairs and maybe a subcommittee. Thank you.
Awesome job. Thank you. Thank you, Brent. Next up, we've got Mr. Jesse Wilson. Jesse is the senior reentry coordinator in North Carolina. Jesse plays a crucial role in managing the Oxford House reentry program, which focuses on assisting individuals in reentering society after incarceration. Jesse Wilson has been in long-term recovery since January 21st of 2018. He's been working with Oxford House since December 1st of 2019. His personal experience, including serving a prison sentence in the North Carolina Department of Adult Corrections and being released with no options of recovery, has fueled his passion for helping individuals transition back into the community. In addition to his professional work, Jesse is a proud father of a 10-year-old son. He attributes the possibility of his sobriety and family life to God, Oxford House, as well as the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Jesse Wilson.
Good morning, family. How we doing? My name is Jesse Wilson. I'm a man in long-term recovery. What that means to me is I have not gave myself permission or found the excuse to put drugs or alcohol in my body since January 21st of 2018. And that's by the grace of God. You know, I heard a guy say that God's grace is his reaction to my action. You know, I finally picked up that phone and I finally called back that Oxford house I left, and they let me come back half drunk because they knew my character when I was sober, and I've been sober ever since. Yeah. You know. It's like God said, this old boy's finally going to do something for himself. I guess I better help him, you know, and I thank God for that every day. So, yeah, how many people in here have not been to prison? Raise your hand, please. Good, good. That's the ones we want in here. You know, because everybody that's been to prison that found Oxford House is a huge advocate for helping people from prison. And I'm going to talk about a few things this morning. I'm going to talk about, you know, what it looks like in prison. How can we help? Because the power is in y'all's hands. The power is in your group, in this house, in your house, in this whole convention. The strength is in numbers, right? You know, like that old man told me, he said, you know, there's a little piece of God in all of us, but it isn't until mine hooks with yours and yours hooks with theirs that the power becomes so great we can stay sober together. And that's true. That's true. See, I came into my first Oxford house about 6 weeks from incarceration, and I was a kid that only knew the bad side of life, only knew the ugly side of life, broken home. You know, father dead from an overdose while I was using with him. You know, it goes on and on about the domestic violence and the trauma. You know, we all got trauma. But I came into an Oxford house, and this guy tried to hug me, and I told him, I said, I don't do that. I ain't going to embrace another man. Today I can do that today. You know, I was just as physically sober in that jail cell that I am right now, but so much has changed with me spiritually. You know, Oxford House isn't going to keep me sober. It's going to give me a place to work on my spirituality. Plain and simple, guys. So, what's it like being incarcerated? You know, for the ones that didn't raise your hand to my question, know what this is like. We're talking about a volatile situation. We're talking about things could be okay and then things could not be okay like that. You know, we're talking about things that take a toll on your mental health, you know, but the lack of resources. You know, a lot of times these case managers in these prisons do not give a damn about us. Plain and simple, if you've been to prison, case managers, they need you in front of them. Where's your home plan? And then they get out of my face, and that's the way it is. You know, I got lived experience of a guy telling me I had to go back home, knowing that I could die. I could die, and I've relapsed the day that I got out of prison. You know, we got to take a moment to realize there's somebody in a jail cell right now that's withdrawing so bad they'd kill themselves if they could, that need us, that haven't found us yet. See, that's the yet. You know, the lack of support, the lack of resources, you know, and that's improving in North Carolina. Curtis has seen that. We go into a lot of prisons. I went into a prison and done a presentation not long ago, and a guy that's been down for 22 years come up to me with tears in his eyes, and he said, we're the forgotten ones. Thank you for coming. See, we can't forget about our people. We cannot forget about our people. Feelings of hopelessness. You know, if I didn't believe in anything when I came into recovery, I believed in the hopelessness and futility of my life as I had been living it. That's what I believed in before I came to believe in a power greater than me, because I've truly been hopeless. There's people in there sober that's hopeless. People in there sober that's running with gangs and affiliated, but know they're doing it wrong and don't have any other options. They don't see a way out. That was me. Not with the gangs, but I didn't see a way out. The only way, I was so hopeless at one time, the only way I seen out was to take my own life. And there's people in here that's done that today. I couldn't go this way, I couldn't go that way. Nobody wanted me, truly alone. You can be in prison and feel so alone, you know. Or I'm not good enough. We talk about the low self-esteem. I'm a failure. Why would anybody want to help somebody like me? They won't even let me see my children. They don't answer my phone call when I call from this block. And all I want to do is hear my mama's voice. You know, things inside of me broke that I didn't even know existed when I heard my son say daddy on the phone the first time. In prison, there's people in there that's dying but still living. You know, the negative environment. I mean, how many times do we go to prison and sometimes we get out thinking that we're a better criminal because we went in there and hung out with some better criminals, you know. And then we get out and continue doing the same thing. I've never met a successful safecracker, you know, or a successful drug dealer. I'm sure they're out there, but I never met one. You know, substance use. You know, people's getting high in prison, guys. People's getting drunk in prison. You know, for me, I didn't have no money, but I still got high. It's readily available. Like I said, with the volatile situations, I mean, it ain't nothing to go around a corner and see somebody get stabbed up. It ain't nothing to get involved with some stuff and get your ass stabbed up. You want me to be honest with you? You know, you see things like this. I mean, my friend that I placed that works with me now, You know, I interviewed him in prison 12 long years, and I'm talking about behind doors. You know, and being in them small segregation cells, it does something to your mind. There's people in here that's been in segs like that for long periods of time, and it messes with their minds, you know, and declining mental health. So when we talk to these people in prison, the best thing that I can give anybody is hope that they can get sober. But it's going to take coming into an Oxford house and being with us. It's going to take good leadership. I'm going to say that one more time. Helping people get sober, it's going to take good leadership. When do you become somebody that has something that the newcomer wants? When? Well, recovery is change behaviors. You can't keep living like a drunk and expect to stay sober. You can't keep acting like an addict and expect to stay clean. You can't keep boosting. You can't keep busting people's heads. You can't keep wanting to be combative and aggressive all the time. This is a spiritual solution for a spiritual sickness, family. And it's going to take us to help that newcomer, not me. It ain't even about me this morning, you know. But when we go in and conduct presentations, let's let them know what they are coming into. And this is a family atmosphere. Let's let them know what we are not. And we're not a bed just to pile up in and think that you can work and pay your little share and go run and isolate in your room. If you don't want to be a part of this, this ain't for you. And don't be afraid to tell somebody that, because they deserve to know the truth about what Oxford House is. Plain and simple. You know, we go, as a house, we go through these interview questions and we look at these things and we ask these same questions. Don't become a robot. Why don't we interview them based on the individual? Right? Let's not become a robot. If you're hearing something that you don't like, let's ask them about it. But let's always let them know exactly what they're walking into. If your state, and I kept this as generic as possible and across the board, because every state's sentencing laws is different. Every state has more red tape. Some have less red tape. We're able to talk directly to the people that's incarcerated. Let's not call them prisoners or inmates. Look, we're past that. You know what I mean? Don't continue stigmatizing people just like you. You know, the thing about judging people is we're quick to do it. But what's the worst feeling? When you get judged. Think about that. Think about that. Oh, he done something bad. Where have I done something bad? What about the families that I've hurt? What about the child that I hurt? You know, where was I wrong? Seeing that judgment stops going away. But building rapport, if you're advocating for reentry like Brent talked about, and you're going in and doing these presentations and you're helping people from prison, let's go talk to the chapters, the other houses. Let's build rapport, and you can do that as a housing service representative. You can do that as a reentry chairperson. You know, working with your outreach coordinators, working with your reentry coordinators to help and build this subcommittee like he was talking about. But, you know, conducting interviews, being a service post-release. What does this look like? When this person gets home from prison, he's looking for any excuse to run. If I went into my Oxford house, the guy that tried to hug me, and I quickly realized these was some nice guys. And you know where I'm from. What's their deal? You know, what's the deal? I said, show me where I sleep. And whenever they took me back there, I said, this ain't my bed. This is true. And he said, what do you mean? I said, it's made. He said, we made you bed for you. Ain't no man ever done that for me. That's when it started to hit me. You know, maybe take that person to go get something good to eat. You know. If service is beyond you, if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. Plain and simple. Thousands come and very few stay in this Oxford House thing, but getting them in there and showing them what compassion and love looks like, as well as accountability, even if the seed is planted and they return to use after 3 months, they know where home is for the rest of their life. They know where home is. Being a service. Let's tap into these local resources. Do we know where, as members out here in front of me, do we know where the local food banks is? Do we know where the staffing agencies that'll help? Do we know where the reentry agencies that's going to come help address some of these basic needs or social determinants of health in the professional world? Do we know where them are? Can we point this person in the right direction? And if you say no, that is okay, but we need to know. Not just for somebody coming from prison, but anyone. Because look, we take care of the housing part. We'll push your ass through the doors of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting or a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, but they're basic needs. Are we prepared to take someone in that doesn't have absolutely anything? If you're not, get prepared. Be that immediate support. You don't have to be a peer support specialist to sit down with somebody and listen to them. Listen just to listen. Don't listen to respond. What about just sitting down and saying, I've been right there, man. I came from prison too. I've been to prison. When I came in here, I was shell-shocked as well. And I got 6 months sober by the grace of God today. And look, I can show you how I done it. You know, encourage that person on their journey and empower that person, whatever that may look like for them, because it may look, they may recover different from you, and that's just all there is to it. And let's not judge that person too hard, that newcomer too hard, because you might not stay sober, and you might have to call him back at an Oxford house to get your ass an interview. It's called humility, and it's not for everybody, it don't seem like. I'm just being honest. And there's a lot of spiritual work you got to get into a state of humility. But you know, thousands may come and very few stay, but the ones that stay mean the world, man. And I tell you, not everybody's put on earth to evolve. Sometimes they're just put here to show us what happens if we don't. Thank y'all. I'll just leave it up there.
Jesse becomes more and more polished year after year. Cannot be more proud of my brother. Hey, quick question, Jesse. How many Oxford House Reentry Coordinator staff do you have in North Carolina now? 6.
Stand up, please.
6 reentry coordinator staff. Does that include you? Does that include you? Okay. So I bring that up just so we can all recognize and acknowledge in this moment that it took 6 people to replace me. Okay. No, I'm just just joking, just joking. Nah, man, you guys are killing it, man. I love you, brother. I really do. So Ivory Wilson is our next speaker, and this joker sent me a bio. You need a degree to read his bio. I'm going to pick out, let's see. So he got a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in sociology from Southwestern College in Winfield, Kansas. He got, I didn't say Alabama. What y'all clapping to? Roll Tide. He got a master's degree in psychology and mental health counseling from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Dude, man, he's got a lot of stuff behind his name. Let's just say that. He is now currently serving as the program manager for the Office of Behavioral Health for the Louisiana Department of Health. Ivory Wilson.
Yeah, I asked Curtis not to do that. Sometimes you can get caught up in titles and labels and degrees and certification, and it really doesn't define sometimes often who that person genuinely is, but I appreciate him. I'll kind of give you a backdrop before I get into the slide presentation. On a personal level, I am not a person who's in long-term recovery. I'm not a person who has done an extensive amount of time in any jail institution. It's not to say that I have not fractured an occasional law growing up in New Orleans while a kid, but not to the degree of some of you other personal experiences that you may have. And, on another level, I have a brother who is incarcerated, currently serving a life sentence in Louisiana. Addicted to heroin for over 30 years, and during one of his sprees, he broke some laws that required him to spend the rest of his life in prison. So, on top of that, I have a number of different individuals I've grown up with, of course, on a personal level, who've also been involved in those type of activities. I kind of give you a backdrop with our relationship with Oxford. The contract has been in existence for probably 20 plus years. I have worked with a number of different individuals, Marty, Laurie, Jeremy, Zach, and so forth, throughout that initiative. Part of our relationship, we actually go into the jails throughout Louisiana. In Louisiana, there are 11 reentry jails, and so those jails are designed for individuals who are returning back to their societies and communities, respectively, throughout the state. I think Brent mentioned some of the statistics about the number of individuals incarcerated nationwide who have a substance use disorder and or mental health condition. In Louisiana, we incarcerate probably more people than any country in the free world. Post-Katrina, we have less than 5 million people in the entire state. This morning, I actually looked up the Department of Public Safety and Corrections budget, over $839 million on the Department of Public Safety and Corrections. I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination, but you got less than 5 million people in the state, but you spend almost $1 billion on public safety and Department of Corrections. And that's odd because the Department of Justice recently released some data that indicated that less than 35% of the people incarcerated are there for violent crimes. In Louisiana specifically, over 88% of the people incarcerated has some type of substance use disorder relationship. And I'm probably minimizing it after going into the jails and hearing people. Another 44% of those people have what's called co-occurring disorders. So that means they're shooting heroin and they're bipolar. They're schizophrenic and they're snorting meth and so forth and so on. So by de facto, jails and institutions have become the default treatment facilities. That's strange because now in Louisiana we have a new administration. If anybody from Louisiana knows, we have a new governor that came in recently. Yeah, I'll let her response say it all. Some subliminal messages within that, oh yeah, but the previous administration embarked upon this unprecedented criminal justice system reform process. It was called the LaPree Initiative, Louisiana Prison Reentry Initiative. So they looked at the 5 factors that strongly influence people going back to jail: mental health issues, substance use issues, housing, labor issues, and educational issues. And so while that previous administration was in place for like two terms, fast forward with the new administration, a lot of the work that has taken place is being placed under the microscope. So now in Louisiana, there's no probation and parole for certain criminal offenses. There's no good time for certain offenses. So while we are encouraging people in the previous administration to go to substance abuse treatment, go to mental health treatment, go to anger management, parenting life skills, so forth and so on, as an incentive, because if you've ever been incarcerated, you know that if you complete these programs, it has a possibility of lowering your sentence. So now there's no incentive to people who are incarcerated in Louisiana to take those courses, those classes. So what does that turn into? What do the jails turn into after the result? If I have no incentive to participate in a program in order to reduce my time, that turns into chaos, right? Constant recurrent, yeah. So that's kind of the backdrop in Louisiana. So it's not all bleak, it's not all desolate. There are a lot of things that are taking place. One of the things that took place in the previous administration, when we did Medicaid expansion, we were able to allow individuals who were incarcerated to apply for Medicaid. So they allowed them to enter treatment services once they're released from, or either once they're returning back to society into their respective communities. That wave is now being expanded to whereas they can now provide those services early, which includes medically assisted treatment, methadone, Suboxone, but also they'll be given Narcan once they're released, once they return back to society. And so I hate that term release. Curtis got me in Washington about using some of that antiquated language that people use in silos where I work, which is not really representative of who people really are. I mean, they're returning citizens. They're people that are coming back to your communities, and these are people that are going to be sitting next to you working, going to hospitals, tax-paying citizens in that community. So we have to take the stigma off, like Jesse mentioned. So forgive me if I kind of slip back into that old mind frame. I'm getting it right. So anyway, so the goal of the contract is to monitor and strengthen the recovery home network within Louisiana, primarily serving men, women and kids. The reentry program that I mentioned, we'd actually go out to the reentry facilities and would actually provide those services. Jeremy would actually participate with that and me also. But we kind of got stopped after the COVID epidemic, which is another issue. Let's see. All right. So in Oxford, in Louisiana rather, we have a number of different Oxford houses. Let me pull my slide deck up because I can't see out. Let's see, give me 1 second. All right, so we have 188 homes statewide, 160 men's, 39 women's homes, 29 women with children's homes, 4 men and children's homes, located throughout the 15 largest cities in Louisiana, which is not much. Let's see, there's a number of list of beds also that we have throughout the state. I won't hold your time with that. Some of the reentry data. So year to date, there were 14 applicants admitted from incarceration. And I'm proud to say that 0 of those individuals recidivated and or returned to institutions. So. So one of the slides that I had to actually update this morning, it's not on the slide deck, talked about the Department of Corrections budget. So it's approximately, let's see, yeah, the 800 million rather that we mentioned. Probably, let's see, 340 million, at least 72% of that budget is towards incarceration. 5 million is spent on rehab services, 57 million is spent on health services, and 288,000 is spent on actual private prison costs. So some of the barriers to recovery that we face in Louisiana: adequate housing, and this is as it pertains to individuals returning home from society. Adequate housing, SUD services, mental health issues, employment, education, and also the elimination of parole and probation, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the ways that we can try to reduce the recidivism rates: provide additional and sufficient housing opportunities, increase behavioral health services in the Department of Corrections budget, not just in our budget, provide a robust health service, mental health services rather, in combination with our state agencies that we collaborate with. And also look at legislation that is meaningful, legislation that is designed to help to reduce the recidivism rates. We all know that prisons are how can I put it without being so offensive? It's a money trap, right? So there are per diem rates, and if you're not familiar, I'll give you a quick tutorial on it. In Louisiana, there are parish rates, and what I mean by that, there's a rate that a facility gets when a person is incarcerated in the state, the city, state, parish, or either on an immigration or federal level. Let's say the parish level is $19 a day. The federal immigration reimbursement rate is over $250, I think almost $300 a month, a day rather, while that person is incarcerated. So while people are being incarcerated, it's almost pretty much modern day slavery if you look at it from a certain perspective. As long as you're in that bed, that facility gets a reimbursement rate. So we need to look at meaningful legislation that actually helps reverse some of those ties that we've seen that cause us to be the most incarcerated state in the United States. Within our budget, within the Louisiana Department of Health, those are some of the funding resources that we have. I think it's a total of 1.5 for this particular fiscal year. One of the grants that we use is the State Opioid Response Grant, and that's the SOA grant. So through that grant, we're able to offer stipends to individuals that are returning back to society in the form, I think it's 1 month that those stipends actually pay for their housing, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, some of the key topics, I've already talked about that. Let's see. Well, in a nutshell, I'll kind of close it up with this. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time. I got about maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. We have to look at post-incarceration recovery opportunities. What are the things that we can offer individuals that are returning back to society that are meaningful and that are actually productive? I know when my friends got out of jail when I was growing up, it was difficult for them to get out and pay child support. It was difficult for them to get out and catch up on this and catch up on that without being penalized. So one of the things that the criminal justice system reform did in the previous administration, this doesn't take a lot of sense to realize this, is that they suspended child support payments while that person is incarcerated. Think about it. If you're getting back into society and you got a mountain hill of child services money that you owe, the first thing I'm going to think if I'm in that particular lifestyle is, what can I do to go back, because I can't afford to pay that. Now, it's not dismissing individuals who are not taking care of their families, not saying that at all. But it's just not a reasonable practice if you want to reduce the recidivism rates, if you allow this bill to continue to escalate. Approaches to facilitating transitions from incarceration to Oxford facilities, Oxford homes rather. It's another thing that we've been working on, and I think we have a real good relationship with the institutions in our state. Working with drug court programs, looking at how these things can actually impact our communities, because if a person is sober, if they're away from drugs and alcohol, if they have supports, if they have resources that are put in place, if they're gainfully employed, if they have somewhere to live, if they're complying with any mental health medication that they may be prescribed, then they're less likely to go to institutions. I kind of rushed through the rest of those slides, so I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to be here to speak with you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you, Ivory. So next up, we have the only female on our panel today. Miss Tina Lewandowski, who is a grateful woman in long-term and sustained recovery for the past 3 years. Tina has been a core member of Oxford House for 2 years, and she has the experience at Oxford House of being a reentry person. She came to Oxford House from incarceration, in other words. And this has brought her many opportunities, including that she has become a certified peer support specialist for Aiken Center, where she is able to go and actually work at the Aiken County Detention Center, the same jail that Tina did time before she went to prison herself. Tina hopes to continue partnering with Oxford House and to help individuals become the best version of themselves. Tina Lewandowski.
So before I introduce myself, I just want all of you out here to give yourself a great round of applause. Yeah, you could have been anywhere today and you chose to be here and give us your time and your energy and listen to what we have to say. So like you said, my name is Tina Lewandowski. I'm a grateful woman in sustained long-term recovery. Since July 29th, 2021, I have not found it necessary to use. So my story is a long one, but I'm going to try to stick to my reentry. I was in and out of incarceration, in and out of rehabilitation for quite a number of years. This last time, July 29th, 2021 is the day I got arrested. And when I went to Aiken County Detention Center, I was beat and I was broken. For 3 months, I laid on that floor and I didn't get up. And I was grateful, because if I was out on the street, I would have went and got me one. There was no doubt in my mind. So it saved my life. When my public defender came and spoke to me, he said, my first offer was 25 years, which I thought was very sad, because I'm not a murderer, I'm not a bank robber. I was a person who had substance use disorders, but my record was long. And all of my charges were possessions with intent to distribute, because it was all my personal use. But they offered me 25 years. And obviously I told them, no, I don't think I'm gonna take that, thank you very much. But he came back and he said, I've spoken to the solicitor, and the solicitor wants to send you away for a long time, but and Derek Bush was the public defender. I have to throw his name out here because he's an amazing man, and he works for a lot of people in the state of South Carolina to help them out. But he said, I can get you into a long-term treatment facility, or you can go to prison. And I said, well, who's gonna help me get into this long-term treatment facility? He said, oh, we don't do that, you know. So if I go out these doors and go out to what I know, I had to figure that all out on my own. And I said, well, that's not gonna work, because if I walk out these doors, I'm going right back to what I know. I knew that. I've done it plenty of times before. I've had good chunks of clean time, but I always went back. I needed something more. I said, you know what, just send me to prison. And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, just send me to prison. I'm just gonna figure it out there." So I went to the South Carolina Department of Corrections, and I had been in plenty of facilities before that, long-term intensive rehabilitation facilities, women's facilities, and I learned a lot over that time. And when I went to prison, it was during COVID. So I was alone in my room in receiving for 7 months by myself. So that solitary confinement that you spoke about, you get to learn some things. So I got the blessing of getting to get a real close relationship with my higher power. And by God's grace and mercy, he showed me some things. And I started to change some behaviors. There were plenty of drugs in prison, plenty of drugs. But the first time I ever felt like I was not a captive, or that I wasn't a prisoner, if this makes sense to anybody, is when I was locked in that cell. I actually was free, and I couldn't believe it. I had this freedom that I never had before. I ended up doing 15 months in incarceration, and I changed some behaviors during that time. I wouldn't read certain books. I didn't read The Cartel like everybody else was reading, because by the time I got done with the book, I wanted to rob banks and run around, so that's not for me. So I picked up my Bible instead, or I picked up my NA book. I used the tablet and all of the options that they offered me on the tablet, the courses that they took and the free things on there, and I utilized them, and I did some work on myself. Towards the end of my prison sentence, they were like, "Where are you going to go?" I said, "Well, I don't know. Let me try these transitional houses." I applied for 18 to 22 houses, and nobody accepted me but the Oxford House. Yes. So I actually didn't know where I was going until the day of my release, the night before. And everybody was like, "Aren't you so worried? Aren't you so worried?" I said, "No, I'm not. God's got me. I'm good." And then they told me, "Well, you're going back to Aiken." And I said, "Oh, boy." That's where I ripped and ran. That's where I was. And I said, "You know what?" And I've learned during this time in jail that I bring me wherever I go, right? I'm gonna take me wherever I go. So this new version of me is gonna go back to Aiken. My senior outreach, Kim Artery, picked me, she was at Catholic Charities. Somebody else picked me up. She was at Catholic Charities waiting for me. And Catholic Charities was there. They gave me some clothes. They made me feel welcome, right? And I came to Aiken. There was a year and a half ago, a little bit over a year and a half ago, when I got to Aiken, South Carolina, there was 2 Oxford houses, 2. I'm sorry, guys. Now there is 5. And it is my hope and prayer that a year and a half from now, there will be 10, right? So, I got lost because I get emotional. And it's just, I don't get emotional like I'm sad. I'm so filled with empathy and gratitude and hope for a future for all of us that at a time in my life I never thought existed. But so I'm in the Oxford house. I was in the women's house. There was 2 residents. Couldn't keep 2 residents. It was kind of hard. And then I just started following the model, the Oxford House model. And it was very simple. And it wasn't, and I'm not saying anything bad about inpatient, because there's a place and a time for everything, right? But this place and this time was like, we can show you what to do, but you're gonna have to do it yourself. Or better yet, let me show you what I do. And then if you wanna do what I do and live how I live, you can. There were some people there that I looked up to, Terry Reilly, who is now my outreach and reentry coordinator for the state of South Carolina. And while I'm giving a shout out to Kayla Horner, who is also the reentry coordinator for the state of South Carolina. But I seen them as residents, right? And they were just really good residents. And I was like, okay, I see what they're doing. I'm gonna do that too. And then I was like, oh, now they're my outreach. Oh, now they're reentry. And I seen these people flourishing and helping other people. And I said, you know what, that's what I want. I couldn't get a job for a while when I got out, because on paper I did not look good, And things I learned in my recovery, I went into a diner, Metro Diner, whom I love, and I said, hey guys, I'm a convicted drug felon, I live at a recovery house, and I need a job. And they said, okay, we got you, come on. And I started working there, and I loved it. From working in my recovery community and working with the Oxford House, one day I was sitting on my couch, and I got a knock on the door, and it was Aiken Center, which is the local 301 in my community. And they said, are you Tina? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Tina. And they're like, you know what, we have a job for you. We want you to be the certified peer support specialist to come into Aiken County Detention Center and work. And I was like, but I'm a convicted drug felon. I can't go into a jail and work. And they're like, no, you can. You can do this. And how about we pay for you to do it? We're going to help you out. So I trained to be a certified peer support specialist and started working at the Aiken Center. During this time, we opened up 2 more men's houses, and every day I was a thorn in my outreach's side. Where's our women's house? Where's our women's house? And that's right. And finally one day he said, all right, Tina, we got a women's house. You ready to be a core member? And I said, I'm already there. That house has been open up 3 months, and it's doing amazing. Yeah. Right. And, I hear everybody up here talking, and it's true. This starts at the bottom, right, from our members. This is where it starts, and I tell the ladies and I tell the men, I'm a chapter officer, I get to work with all these people all the time. I say it starts with you. When people say welcome home when you come in that door, when they buy you that pair of work boots, when they take you to work, when they borrow you that $25 to get your prescription, those kinds of things mean something, But back to my story. So I go back, I'm working at the Aiken Center, and they send me into the detention center. We're supposed to have a counselor, but we don't. It's just me, peer support, back in the jail that I went to prison from, And I'm back around these COs that seen me on the floor for 3 months, One day I get this phone call, and they're like, is this Tina? And I'm like, yeah. He said, do you know who I am? I said, I don't know who you are. Your name sounds familiar, but I hear a lot of names. And he says, Tina, I was your solicitor. I said, oh. He said, yes. He goes, I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. He said, I'm a type A personality. I don't like to ever admit that I was wrong. And he goes, but I am so glad that I was wrong about you. I am so glad that you did not do that prison time that I wanted to give you. And I am proud to know you and to know what you're doing in our community. So now, and things can change, and perspectives can change, because when I was in active addiction, I would have looked at that guy and thought he was, a jerk, right? But he had to humble himself to call me and apologize, or say he was wrong, And it humbled me a little bit more to be appreciative that he did. So I work at the Aiken County Detention Center, and I see so many people that just don't know what to do, When they're in prison, they kind of know their release date. They know when they're getting out. They can have a little bit of a better plan. But in a detention center setting, not everybody knows that. So I run groups, and I talk to people, and at least once a day, somebody comes up to me and says, Tina, thank you for being here today. You might not have done anything. You just might have came into the unit and gave us a crossword puzzle, but you came. And you're here, and I can see that recovery is working in your life, and it gives me hope that recovery is going to work in mine. I do want to say to everybody that's here that re-entries do work. My outreach worker was a re-entry. I was a re-entry. Since I've only been at the Aiken County Detention Center really about 6 months. In that 6 months, me and with the help of Terry, we have placed 2 or 3 residents, and they're all doing amazing, right? But it's a project. Like, I will be on the phone all day. I will go after I'm done with work, and I will drive to the houses and be like, you guys, give this guy a chance. But people are scared. They don't know. But we were all at that place one time where we didn't know. Yes. So I thank you all again for coming here today. I hope that my story helped somebody, and I'm proud of you all. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Tina Lewandowski. We are out of time for this panel. We hope you got a lot out of this and get a lot out of the rest of the convention. God bless you all. Dude, killing it.
Thank you.